Mozambique, Africa. I was raised in Portugal. I studied 3 years in the US. I've lived in Africa. I invested in agriculture in Brazil. I work with Siemens. I'm the longest serving CEO of Siemens World, 20 years on this job, having the responsibility for Angola, Mozambique, and Portugal, and 10 years also for Macau, so I know the Asian business. So I consider myself a citizen of the world and not just a mere Portuguese. We are going from the important aspect of happiness in the city, so typical from the Latin countries, to the pragmatic cost optimization, budget constraint, and intelligence application in the city, more typical of the German or North Europeans. So, if we go forward, we don't have to explain to the audience why cities are important now, because, I mean, since 2007 or so, more people live in cities than in the land for the first time or recently. Oh, I have to speak here, okay, or the mic. Sorry. So, recently the population is bigger in cities than in the land. We have 7 billion people. We have the first city agglomerations of 100 million people. And of course, the biggest challenge of the world evolution will be in the cities.
If you want to move around, it's very good. We like it. So
okay.
But you have to speak in the microphone so the interpreters can hear what you say.
Yes, yes. So we have budget constraints, as I said. The cities cannot spend more money. And the biggest challenge are mobility. We have to move more and more people. Cities of 30 million are now more in the world. We have the power, the energy consumption, I think 80% is in the cities of the world. We have rising energy costs. We have to put some intelligence to increase the efficiency. So our company is working, I mean, the world is working on that very much. And we have here just some late examples. In the transportation, the automation of a metro line increased by 70,000 passengers. A fast lane decreases the time. The intelligence applied to the grids, electricity grids, lower the investment costs, the virtual power, and of course buildings. Buildings are responsible for 40% of the energy consumption and of course of the CO2 emission. So there are a lot to do, and that's the exciting thing. There's a lot to do to increase the life quality and the cost efficiency in the cities. We have a lot to do. Also, some examples. One of the last, one of the biggest buildings of the world, also one of the most efficient ones, saved a lot of CO2 emissions, saved a lot of costs, and these are examples where we can work. We work very much with airports, and that's why we also thank to be invited here to talk to Vinci, a very important partner from us, and Hope, also a future client from us, actual and future. Very interesting also, we are developing very interesting ideas now. For instance, with extending the intelligence to the smartphones in airports, information about the flights, in hospitals, information about the medical hour of the the appointment with the medical, or just pointing out the ways we have to follow. So we are investing on that intelligent information, especially in big buildings where a lot of people live and a lot of people go around. And we know that the evolution about mobility and mobility in telecommunication is very important. In electricity, we are going to see a lot of intelligence applied exactly like the telecommunication did when we started the digitalization years ago. So we will apply a lot of intelligence to reduce costs and to put, and I will give some examples. Also important, and we have some examples, is what we call here the self-healing capacity. We reduced sometimes in the US, cities with tornadoes or with other problems or the overuse of the electrical grid, sometimes it goes down. Putting some intelligence there, we reduced from 17 hours putting it up again to a couple of minutes or seconds. So it's a very interesting evolution also. Siemens also did a club, the C40 club, started with 40 cities, now is 68 cities that represent almost 10% of population, 20% of GDP of the world, and did a kind of a club where the mayors decide discuss and decide a lot of the important challenges and problems of the world around the themes that you are discussing. We have 10 categories: urban transportation, solid waste. I don't have to explain the importance of this, but these were the most important topics that were chosen by these mayors. The interesting part is that the mayors actually now is the mayor of Rio de Janeiro, which is sharing that club of cities. And this is an example of the award categories and the cities that won, I think this one, last year. For instance, and I had to inform myself about some things because being the CEO, I don't have to know about everything, but the one I didn't know exactly, and now I know, was the Tokyo example, which is also an interesting example where they put a kind of trade about CO2 emissions. They define a standard or an objective for big buildings, and if they are under, they can sell some of the rights. If they are above, they will have to buy or to pay. And this is an interesting aspect, how you can control the energy consumption and the CO2 emission. And then you have a lot of very good examples. Today we will talk about Munich, who won the energy aspect. And Munich was a special city with special problems, so I'll go forward. The challenge is that Germany gave a lot of incentive to green energy, not only wind, but also sun, solar energy. And especially in Munich, there was a big concentration of all those kinds of renewable energies. Also, some of the water energy. And they had a special problem of putting that all together. So, contacting with us, working together, we did one of the first and biggest virtual energy central or smart grid generation aspect, where they combined all the different kinds of power with intelligence, and they inform and they manage the input and the output very well. So the objective of the city is to have 100% green by 2025. How they can do that is, and this is one of the important aspects, is because they have the hydropower available and they will increase it, which is very important to do the storage of the wind power when they are, because wind power or the renewables have a problem. They produce when the nature wants, but the consumption is not exactly at the same time, so the problem of the renewables was the storage problem. One of the ways to storage is to do a pumping the water back, and then it will go out again in the hydropower, also with the other kinds of batteries and things like that. In a city is also very important, the storage problem or the evolution, because we can do that in buildings. We will for sure do that with electric cars, and I was imagining in those interesting ideas of Colombia and of the pedestrian renting a small electric car to go along also with the bikes or so. The electric cars in a city will be, I'm sure, a reality, in the sense that, for instance, in a big city, 200,000 electric cars or so would be able to storage at night the free or almost free electricity and then spend it at the day or even sell it during the day. But these are all problems that we are analyzing and investing. And again, going to the challenges of the big cities and to the challenges of the world, because the défi will be in if we make it in the city or not. We have a lot of examples of a very big project that is done successfully nowadays, and we have another one now starting in Saudi Arabia of public transportation. We have very interesting projects, for instance, the first recycling water that can make drinking water from wastewater. So it is done in Singapore and it is already possible. They just are not selling yet the water because they're still for the public does not yet understand, but they are already making drinking water from wastewater. So, and this water is of course one of the big problems in the future. Again, this is one of the good examples in the US, where they came from 17 hours restoring to 2 seconds. So it's a big difference, especially in countries where we have these happening a lot. This is also, it's another example of a good investment. So with 15 billion investment, they are saving 14 billion. In big cities is a new aspect of these investments, of these challenges. And this is also in Colombia an example of a new idea that can be different. So, and it's, you know, the congestion of the big cities, and instead of 7 hours to take 7 minutes, or if you go in the traffic in Bangkok or in Luanda, in Angola or whatever, you have, sometimes it's easier to go by bicycle or by foot or quicker. So we have to think about new ways of putting the intelligence and the technique that we already have in service of these developments in the cities. It's interesting comparing to the evolution of the industry, which is already starting the 4.0 phase. The development in the cities is in the 3.0, and it's interesting because the first automations were the electric railways, etc. Then we started with intelligent infrastructure, automation, smart grids, starting about that. We are now starting the 3.0, integrating real-time optimization and acting already online in a lot of things. The 4.0, which is already in the industry, is when we will start planning virtually. For instance, the landing of the small car in Marte was all planned virtually with software, and then was done very successful. We don't do that in the cities yet, but we have a long way and a very interesting way to apply the intelligence in all these things, especially on the electricity, which gives a possibility of the cities with the budget constraints spending the same money but having much more out of it. We have, for instance, now, and giving an example here in Lisbon, we took care of the traffic lights, and just changing to intelligence to better lights, we save up to 40% energy, which is a lot. We have examples of smart grids here on small islands like Madeira or Açores, where we can combine the natural electricity or the renewable electricity with some storage, interesting new ways, still lithium batteries, but other ways, and then put an island self-sufficient. We have, like I said, these studies here about informing in big shopping centers, big hospitals, or big airports, the public, which uses the mobiles, uses. So we have a very big possibility of ways of developing new ways of being more efficient in cities and more cost effective, which is one of the biggest problems now in Europe or in the world. So, thank you.